Hello, my snarky sweethearts. Today's tales come straight from r/am I the a-hole, where no one's wrong, but everyone's terrible. Let's dive into the first one. Am I the a-hole for telling a guy to shut up during a job interview? I was interviewing this guy for a very good software engineering position. He passed the first round, and both I and everyone involved in the second round really liked his resume and experience. On paper, he had everything we were looking for, and honestly, this looked like a life-changing opportunity for him. Then he shows up, very serious and not smiling at all. I'm used to that in tech interviews, and I understand it can be an intimidating environment. We did a round of introductions. And then he opened the interview by saying, "Let me tell you a little bit about myself." We said, "Okay, go for it." He started talking about his personal and professional background. After about 3 minutes, I jumped in to ask a follow-up question based on something he mentioned. He replied, "I will answer, just give me a moment," and continued talking. A coworker jumped in with another question, and he said the same thing to her. At this point, we were kind of looking at each other, but decided to let him continue and give him the benefit of the doubt. But after more than 5 minutes, I jumped in again with another question. I had to talk over him to do it. He finally paused and answered, but in such a long-winded way that he ended up veering into another topic. My coworker asked another question, and the same thing happened. At this point, I was ready to end the interview. I tried to politely wrap it up several times, but he was unable to read the room and just kept talking. I finally raised my voice slightly and said something like, "Thank you very much for sharing your background. In the interest of time, I'd like to ask if you have any questions for us. This is standard protocol and helps us prepare answers for future interviews." He asked a question about the team. As I was answering, he raised his finger and interrupted to talk more about his background. I let it go. Then he asked another question, which my coworker started to answer, but again, he spoke over her to talk about himself. I tried once more to interrupt politely, but he kept talking. At that point, I was done. I said, "John, you really have to stop talking and listen." He was surprised, as was my coworker, but he finally stopped talking. I continued, "You walked into this room with a 99% chance of getting the job. Now, that chance is 0. The only reason is because, in less than 15 minutes, you've demonstrated that you don't have the capacity to listen at all. So I'm telling you now you're not getting the job. But if you take anything away from this interview, let it be this. No matter how good you are technically, if you can't listen, you'll never excel in this career." He apologized and said, "Can we start again?" I replied, "You had your chance. Best of luck in your future interviews. Make sure you listen." Looking back, I know I could have handled that differently, but I still feel bad for the guy. Okay, first of all, I think you're not the a-hole. Not even close. You gave this guy every opportunity to shine, and instead, he dug himself a tunnel and kept talking through it. Look, I've met people like this. In fact, I used to work with a guy just like him. Brilliant tech brain. I swear, you could hand him a toaster and a jet engine, and by next week he'd be running diagnostics on both like an expert. But wow, the man could not shut up. He'd answer yes or no questions with a 20-minute TED Talk full of jargon, tangents, and unnecessary deep dives no one asked for. It wasn't just annoying, it was exhausting. Over time, people just stopped including him in meetings. No one wanted to collaborate. He's been stuck in the same mid-level role for like 2 decades because, even though he's smart, no one can work with him. And if he ever needed a new job, I don't know how he'd make it past the first interview without monologuing himself out of the running. That's exactly what happened here. You weren't rude. You were honest. And frankly, that kind of feedback might be the most useful thing he's heard in years. What do you think, Snarks? Was OP too blunt, or did this guy need the verbal smackdown to finally stop steamrolling people? Let me set the stage. My wife and I, 43 male, 42 female, have 2 daughters, 7 years apart. Our 19-year-old was at college in a different state when this happened. The girls are very different. The 19-year-old is outgoing, even extroverted, loves meeting new people, trying new things, etc. The 12-year-old is shy, a homebody, finds things she's comfortable with, and sticks with them. In fairness, our older daughter was kind of like this until she was 16 or so. Maybe it's genetic. A couple months ago, my 12-year-old comes to me in my home office, obviously upset. She stammers a bit, then manages to tell me that she just got her first period. I played the supportive dad, comforted her, got her a box of sanitary pads my wife had bought earlier in the year, guessing this was going to happen sooner or later, and went over the instructions with her. She went into her bathroom, did what she had to do, thanked me for my help. I got her some ice cream and Midol, told her there was nothing to be embarrassed about, and she could always come to me for anything. My wife gets home later that day. Our 12-year-old tells her what happened. My wife starts crying. My little girl is growing up, etc. Then asks who should be invited to the period party, which I only knew of from listening to Bert Kreischer. If they were a thing when our 19-year-old started, she never asked for one. Our 12-year-old immediately closes off, says she doesn't want a period party, doesn't want anyone to know. My wife tries to talk to her some more, but she ignores her and goes to her room. My wife then tries to enlist my help in changing her mind, but I tell her she said she didn't want one. Don't worry about it. 2 days later, I get home from running errands. Before I can even make it to the stairs, my 12-year-old runs up to me and asks if she can do her homework in my office. I'm confused, but say, sure, and she bolts upstairs. At this point, I started to suspect what was going on. I walked into the living room to find that my wife had not only decorated it like something straight out of My Super Sweet 16, but there were several family friends, all women, and a few I recognized as neighborhood mothers. I beckon my wife into the hall. She asks where our daughter is, and I tell her she wanted to do homework in my office. She rolls her eyes and starts to move past me, but I step in front of her. I asked, "What are you doing?" She replied, "Going to get her. It's her party." She told you specifically she did not want one of these. Oh, she didn't mean that. This is an important time for a girl. She needs to know not to be ashamed of her body. I told her, she's not. I already explained things to her. She just doesn't want to talk about it more. I don't expect you to understand. This is just for us women. Then she actually tried to push past me, but I stepped into the doorway and completely blocked her. What's wrong with you? I shot back, "What's wrong with you? You know how shy our daughter is. You knew she didn't want you doing something like this, and you did it anyway. I told you it's for her own good. We can't let her grow up with a negative attitude towards something so natural." And we're not. I told you she knows what's going on. She's getting a handle on it. She just doesn't want to talk about it with anyone else right now. Then she said, "Well, it wasn't your business to tell her about it anyway." I asked, "You were at work. Was I supposed to ignore her for 4 hours until you got home?" "You could have called me. I would have come home." "It still would have taken you an hour. She was upset. I knew what was going on. I talked her through it." "You don't know anything about it. It's never happened to you." At that point, I gave up. Point to my wife. No, I've never had a period. But I had 3 older sisters and a live-in girlfriend before my wife and I met. Plus, we've been married almost 21 years. I'm pretty well-versed. She again tried to move past me, but I did not move. I said, "No, our daughter doesn't want this. I'm not letting you make her do it." She glared at me and said, "Fine, have it your way." She went back into the living room and told the other women the period party was off because I was being a jerk. I lost it, followed her in, and let the women know, calmly, but in no uncertain terms, that I appreciated what they wanted to do, but our daughter made it explicitly clear that she did not want this party, and my wife was trying to pressure her into it. Several of the moms frowned at her. My wife started to backpedal, talking about how she didn't think our daughter was being serious, but I ignored her and began taking down the decorations. Everyone cleared out shortly after that. Once the coast was clear, our daughter came back downstairs. My wife gave her what I thought was a half-hearted apology, again, saying she didn't think she was serious, but our daughter ignored her too and just started doing her homework in her usual spot at the table. My wife was upset with me for a week, claimed I undermined her authority as a parent, apparently by not helping her force our daughter to do something she did not want to do, and said I made her look bad in front of the neighborhood moms by telling them she had ignored our daughter's wishes. So, am I the a-hole? So, after a few days, things around the house went back to normal. My wife cooled off, our 12-year-old began talking to her again, and they didn't appear to have any issues. Except, our daughter started coming to me more often about things instead of her mom. My wife obviously noticed, since they'd been very close before this, and while she was hurt, she didn't say anything. I guess she figured she deserved it. Finally, one day after I got back from taking our daughter to school, my wife asked me if she was still angry with her. I said I didn't think so, and my wife just kind of deflated. She looked so miserable that I actually got worried and asked if she was still angry. She said no, then admitted that she'd messed up, gotten too caught up in the idea of what others here have called a menstruation celebration, which is a great phrase. It even rhymes. She said she had been so focused on making sure our daughter had a positive experience that she brushed aside her reluctance to take part. And in my wife's defense, our daughter does this regularly. She'll say she isn't looking forward to doing something, but if she pushes past her shyness and takes part, she almost always has a good time. So my wife assumed this was just another one of those moments and didn't take it seriously. Then she said something that threw me for a loop. She asked if I thought our daughter hated her now. I was stunned and automatically said, "Of course not, she's just..." And then I kind of trailed off because I didn't really know what to say. Upset was what I finally settled on. My wife got quiet and I asked her why she had been so insistent, especially since she hadn't tried to do anything like this for our 19-year-old. No drama there. Our older daughter got her period at 13 while they were out shopping. It was handled before they even left the mall. My wife explained that, back then, the day was just so busy she didn't have time to think beyond, "Quick, let's get to the bathroom so I can help." And it wasn't until now that she really thought about her own first experience. She had been barely 12 when it happened. Her emotionally manipulative mother, who she's been no contact with for 15 years, had told her virtually nothing beforehand. And when my wife finally went to her for help, all she got was a box of pads and a warning not to get pregnant. That was it. Nothing else was ever said. My wife had to learn nearly everything from a friend's mother. Yeah, that old woman is a piece of work. My wife was determined not to behave like that toward our daughter, but as it turned out, she'd basically gone too far in the other direction. She then asked me what she could do to fix it. I told her the truth. Our daughter probably wasn't going to feel comfortable confiding in her again for a while, but if she really wanted to apologize, she should tell our daughter exactly what she had just told me. And so she did. My wife went to pick her up from school, and when they got home, I saw they'd both been crying, but also seemed lighter, happier. Turns out I wasn't entirely right. Our daughter had still been harboring some resentment about being pushed into the period party, but after hearing my wife's story, she forgave her. She only asked that my wife promise not to do something like that again. And now, 2 months later, things between them seem to be back to normal. Maybe not the most exciting resolution, but I don't think this left any permanent damage on their relationship. Okay, deep breath, because this one hit hard in a quiet, powerful way. You are not the a-hole, not even close. You weren't undermining anyone. You were protecting your kid's autonomy when no one else would. And frankly, that's what good parenting looks like. Your wife didn't act out of malice, but she let her unresolved trauma steer the wheel. She wanted to give your daughter the support she never got, which is a beautiful instinct, but she forgot the most important part. You can't force healing on someone else, especially a 12-year-old girl who just wants to deal with something private in peace. I think your wife learned a valuable lesson, and your daughter will probably be okay with her eventually. But yeah, this might always be one of those memories she won't exactly look back on fondly. I remember my own first time. It was such a weird, messy milestone. Even in families where periods are normalized, it's still overwhelming. You're 12, your body's leaking, your brain's freaking out, and suddenly adults want to throw you a party like you just graduated from medical school? No thanks. And even with support and all the education in the world, at that age, it's still kind of gross. You've got blood coming out of you, it smells weird, you're worried about stains, and heaven forbid some other kid finds out, suddenly you're the punchline in gym class. It's just a deeply personal thing. Would I have wanted 10 women clapping and cooing over my underwear that day? Absolutely not. So, yeah. Thank you for standing up for your kid when she needed privacy, not pink streamers. That wasn't just a dad win, that was a human win. What do you think, Snarks? Should parents ever surprise kids with these kinds of milestone parties? Or should all bodies just be allowed to grow quietly in peace? And that wraps up today's r/am I the a-hole. Hope you enjoyed the drama as much as I did. If you did, give it a thumbs up and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everything, even the spicy ones. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button, turn on the bell, so you never miss another crazy story. I'll see you in the next one, and trust me, it's gonna be wild. Bye!